Welcome to teachmehow.com. In this video, we're going to show you how to change the rear brake pads and rotors on this 2002 Dodge Grand Caravan Sport.
That's right. Now we're going to review with you the tools we'll be using today.
Jack, 2 jack stands, 2 wheel chocks. We need new rear brake pads and 2 new rear brake rotors. Some brake parts cleaner, some brake fluid, some anti-seize lubricant, high temperature caliper grease, some thread lock, some hose clamp pliers, a disc brake spreader, a 3/8 box and wrench, a 19mm socket and ratchet to remove the lug nuts, a 7mm hex bit and ratchet to remove the guide pin bolts, need a large C-clamp, a 3/8 torque wrench, a 1/2" torque wrench, a bungee cord, brake bleeder kit, some shop glasses, a shop light, and some hand towels. We also use this 3-pound hammer to remove the old rotors, a stubby screwdriver, and also a small thin screwdriver. We put the wheel chocks in front of both front tires. Then we loosen up our lug nuts about a 1/2 to a 1/4 turn using our 19mm socket and ratchet. We do this for both rear tires. Then we slide our jack up under the vehicle, and here we're going to use the rear axle to jack the vehicle from. Be careful of the rear stabilizer bar. Now once the vehicle is high enough off the ground, we'll put our jack stands under the rear axle, and we'll lower the vehicle onto the jack stands. Then we're going to go ahead and remove the lug nuts from both rear tires. We slide our tires up under the van for both safety and for convenience. Now we're going to show you the position of the caliper guide pin bolts and also of the brake bleeder screw. Then we're going to apply our hose clamp pliers to the brake line, remove our dust cover, we're going to use our 3/8 wrench and put it over the bleeder screw, use our brake bleeder kit, open up the bleeder screw. We're going to compress the caliper piston so we can remove the caliper easily. We'll position our C-clamp on the front and the back of the brake caliper. Tighten up the C-clamp and you can see brake fluid coming out of the bleeder screw. Now we're going to remove the C-clamp, tighten up our bleeder screw, remove our brake bleeder kit, reinstall our dust cover. Now we're going to remove the caliper guide pin bolts using our 7mm hex bit socket and a 3/8 drive ratchet. Then we're going to slide our caliper guide pins out. And now we can remove our caliper. With our caliper removed, we'll go ahead and remove the brake pads. Now we're going to tie up our caliper using our bungee cord to keep the weight off of the brake hose. Now we're going to remove this little retaining washer. Don't worry about damaging it because we're not going to reuse it. Now we're going to use our 3-pound hammer to gently hit on the back of the rotor to knock it loose. Now we can remove the rotor from the vehicle. In case your emergency brake is holding your rotor into place, there is an access port on the backing plate that you can access this screw, which will allow you to adjust your emergency brake pads so you can remove the rotor more easily. You can access this from the back of the backing plate covered by this grommet. Now we will remove the old rotor, install the new rotor, and hold it in place with a lug nut. Now we're going to clean the rotor with some brake parts cleaner to remove any oily residue that may be on the rotor. Now we're getting ready to reinstall our brake pads and our caliper. So we're going to have to compress the piston inside the caliper. To do this, we remove the dust cover, install our 3/8 wrench, our brake bleeder kit, we open up the bleeder screw. Using one of the old brake pads, we'll put it back into the rotor, and then we're going to use our disc brake spreader to compress the piston into the caliper. Once the piston is flush within the caliper, we remove our disc brake spreader, remove our old pad, tighten up our bleeder screw, remove our brake bleeder kit, remove our 3/8 wrench, reinstall our dust cover, then we get ready to install our pads. The first thing we do is we apply some high temperature caliper grease to the back of both brake pads. Now we put the inner brake pad in first. It goes into the caliper. It snaps in place. Then we install our outer brake pad. It also snaps into place with these clips onto the caliper. Now we're going to install our caliper over the new rotor. Make sure this clip goes under the caliper mounting bracket. This clip is attached to one of the brake pads. Now, once the caliper is lined up and in place and seated properly, this is how the caliper should look when it's installed correctly. Now we're going to get our caliper guide pin bolts ready to reinstall. First, we're going to use some high temperature caliper grease on the caliper guide pins. This will allow your brake pads to wear more evenly. Now we're going to apply a little thread lock to the threads of the bolts. Install our bolts into the caliper. And we'll tighten them up using our 7mm hex bit socket and 3/8 ratchet. Once we have them tight, we will torque them to 35 foot-pounds, unless otherwise specified. Now we'll remove our hose clamp pliers and we go to the other side. Again, we'll use our hose clamp pliers to clamp the brake line. Then remove our dust cover. Install our 3/8 box end wrench over our bleeder screw. Install our brake bleeder kit. Open up the bleeder screw. Use our large C-clamp to compress the piston inside the caliper slightly to easily remove the caliper from the rotor. Now we tighten up our bleeder screw, remove our brake bleeder kit, and reinstall our dust cover. Then we're going to use our 7mm hex bit socket and ratchet again to remove our caliper guide pin bolts. With both bolts removed, we'll remove our brake caliper, remove our pad that's inside the brake caliper, tie it up with our bungee cord. Now the brake pad stayed in the caliper mounting bracket, so we'll go ahead and remove it now. We'll remove our retaining clip. You can also remove this with a pair of needle nose pliers. Again, we'll use our 3-pound hammer to remove our brake rotor. Reinstall our new brake rotor. Hold it in place with a lug nut. Clean the brake rotor with our brake parts cleaner. Now we're getting ready to install our brake pads and our caliper. Remove our caliper, remove our dust cover, install our 3/8 wrench and our brake bleeder kit. We're going to compress the piston inside the caliper. Now we open up the brake bleeder screw. We'll use one of our old brake pads, put it inside the caliper piston, and using our disc brake spreader, we'll compress the piston inside the caliper. Once the piston is fully compressed, we'll remove the disc brake spreader, remove our old pad, tighten up our bleeder screw, remove our brake bleeder kit, remove our wrench, and reinstall our dust cover. Now we're going to get ready to install our pads. We're going to place high temperature caliper grease on the back of both pads. Now we'll install the pads in the caliper, starting with the inner pad, which will snap into the caliper piston. Now we'll install our outer pad. It too has clips that will clip onto the caliper. This is how it should look. Then we're going to slide our caliper into place, making sure the clip on the pad goes under the caliper mounting bracket. And then we'll slide our caliper into place, making sure the front and the rear are lined up correctly. And this is how it should look when it's in place. Then we're going to apply some anti-seize lubricant to both of the caliper guide pin bolts. As I said earlier, this will keep your pads wearing evenly. And then we're going to apply a little thread lock to the threads. Now we're going to insert our caliper guide pin bolts into the caliper, making sure they line up with the caliper mounting bracket. Then we'll tighten up the bolts using our 7mm hex bit socket and our 3/8 drive ratchet. Once we have the bolts snugged down, we'll torque them to 35 foot-pounds unless otherwise noted. Then we're going to remove our hose clamp pliers. We'll get ready to bleed the brakes. First, we'll make sure we have plenty of fluid in our master cylinder. It should be up to the full line. If not, add some brake fluid until it is at the maximum mark. Then we're going to start with the caliper farthest from the master cylinder. This is our passenger side. We remove our dust cover, put on our wrench and our brake bleeder kit. Have your partner depress the brake pedal and hold it down. Then we'll open up our bleeder screw, wait for the pedal to go all the way to the floor, then close the bleeder screw. Have your partner release the brake pedal and then mash it again. Never release the brake pedal with the bleeder screw open. It can introduce some air into your brake lines. Continue this process until there are no more air bubbles in the brake bleeder line. Then remove our wrench, reinstall our dust cover, add more fluid if needed, and we move to the driver's side. Remove our dust cover, install our 3/8 wrench, install our brake bleeder kit, have your partner depress the brake pedal, open up the bleeder screw until the pedal goes all the way to the floor, close the bleeder screw, have your partner raise the brake pedal and mash it back down. Again, continue this process until there are no more bubbles in the line from the brake bleeder kit. Once you're done, make sure you tighten up your bleeder screw, remove your brake bleeder kit, remove the wrench, reinstall your dust cover, add more brake fluid as necessary. Then we're getting ready to reinstall our tires. We remove the lug nut holding our brake rotor into place. Slide our tire on. Put our lug nuts on. We'll tighten up the lug nuts till they're snug on both sides using our 19mm socket and ratchet. Then we move to the other side. Remove the lug nut, slide our tire into place, install the lug nuts, snug them down. Then with both tires, lug nuts snug down, we can raise the vehicle back up, remove our jack stands. Again, remember to watch the rear sway bar here. Once you have the vehicle up in the air, we'll go ahead and remove our jack stands. And we'll lower the vehicle back onto the ground. And we're going to torque the lug nuts to 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern. And don't forget to remove your wheel chocks.
Well, we hope this video will help you change the rear brake pads and rotors on your 2002 Dodge Grand Caravan Sport.
Send any comments you may have to comments@teachmeall.com. And as always, thank you for visiting teachmeall.com and have a great day.